So, we're going to dive into a pretty provocative idea today. It's the argument that for 1,000 years, the suffering of children has been used as a tool, a weapon even, in ways that, well, have very little to do with the children themselves. And this whole story, believe it or not, kicks off with a traffic stop that goes horribly wrong. Okay, picture this. It's January 4th, 2025. Two police officers in Kannapolis, North Carolina, pull a car over. You know, a totally routine traffic stop. The kind of thing that happens thousands of times a day across the country. But this one would end up being a doorway to a story that's centuries old. Because during that stop, the passenger in the car, a man named Edgar Madison Welch, pulls out a handgun. The officers open fire and he's killed. It's a grim, sudden, and violent end. But the real story isn't just what happened on that day. To really get what brought Welch to that moment and to see how his story plugs into this much, much larger historical pattern, we've got to hit rewind. We have to go back nearly 10 years, because his actions back then set the stage for this final tragic encounter. And that takes us to this absolutely bizarre and shocking event in Washington, D.C. It's an incident that serves as the modern-day anchor for this 1,000-year-old story we're unpacking. Right, so on December 4th, 2016, this same guy, Edgar Madison Welch, walks into a family pizzeria called Comet Ping Pong carrying an AR-15 rifle. Now, he wasn't there to rob the place, no, he was on a mission. He genuinely believed he was there to liberate children who were being held captive by a secret political cabal operating out of a basement. The only problem? The children were completely fictional, and the pizzeria? It didn't even have a basement. He walked into a lie ready to kill for it. A delusion like that feels so modern, right? It feels like something that could only be born from the dark corners of the internet. But it actually follows an ancient, well-worn blueprint. It's a story that has been used as a weapon before, just in a very, very different time. What happened in that DC pizzeria is an echo. It's a modern repetition of a pattern that was forged almost 1,000 years ago. So let's jump in a time machine. We're going all the way back to 1144 to Norwich, England. A 12-year-old boy, an apprentice tanner named William, is found murdered. The crime is never actually solved, there's no evidence, but a story is created. The story goes that the local Jewish community killed him as part of a ritual. This lie becomes the first known blood libel, and William's tragic death is weaponized into a powerful narrative that will poison Europe for centuries to come. And that's the core of the blood libel. And I want you to notice what makes it so incredibly potent. It had to be a child. The murder of an adult just wouldn't have the same impact. No, only the violation of innocence could generate the kind of white-hot hysteria needed to make the narrative stick. And when you put the two side by side like this, the connection becomes chillingly clear. In the 12th century, a real child's murder fuels a false story about a specific community. In the 21st century, fictional children fuel a false story about a political establishment. The targets and the technology have changed, for sure, but the grammar of the outrage, the basic mechanics of the story, are eerily similar. And over time, this pattern, it didn't just repeat itself. Oh no, it escalated. The spectacle of using children's suffering grew larger, more dramatic, and even more potent. The logic kind of evolved from one suffering child as a powerful symbol to, well, more must be even better. After the story of William of Norwich, you get the Children's Crusade in 1212, where tens of thousands of actual children are sacrificed to a symbol, lost to hunger and slavers. Then, let's fast forward to 2014, Russian state TV literally invents the story of a single crucified boy to help justify a war. The scale and the media change, but the core tactic, it's exactly the same. So, according to our source material, this pattern follows a really clear grammar. It's like a 4-step recipe. Step 1, present a child victim. Doesn't matter if they're real or imagined. Step 2, name a villain. Step 3, crank the moral outrage up to 11. And step 4, and this is absolutely crucial, once the child's actual, messy, real story becomes inconvenient, they're just discarded. The story moves on. Okay, and this isn't just ancient history or something that happened a few years ago. This exact same grammar, this recipe, is at play right now in some of the most heated and divisive debates of our time. Think about this example from 2019. You've probably seen these photos, right? They were everywhere. The images of Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez at a border fence, seemingly crying for migrant children. The images are incredibly powerful.
They're presented as undeniable proof of injustice against kids. It's a perfect step one. Present the victim to create a moral point that feels beyond argument.
And for a moment, it works. A massive national wave of outrage builds. But then, what happens? The story moves on, the 24-hour news cycle finds something new, the policy largely stays the same, and the children, they stay right where they are. The spectacle passes, and the victim gets left behind.
And our source material argues you can see this pattern of selective outrage all over the place. The deaths of Palestinian children, for example, fit that frame of innocent victimhood perfectly and become a global focus. Meanwhile, the suffering of children in conflicts in places like Sudan or Nigeria gets way less attention. And think about the culture wars over transgender youth. Both sides claim they are the ones saving the children, using them as powerful symbols in a fight that's really about adult ideologies. And this all leads us to a really challenging central claim from our source. In this pattern of outrage, the actual, factual reality of a child's suffering is often just incidental. It's secondary.
And this right here is the crucial distinction. William of Norwich was a real boy who was really murdered. The children in the crusade were real, but the crucified boy in Ukraine? A complete fiction. The children in the pizzeria basement? Totally made up. And yet, and this is the wild part, whether the kids were real or not, the result was the same. Real-world violence and real-world outrage. The story proved to be more powerful than the truth.
You see, the point is this. If the goal were actually to help children, then the reality of their situation would be the most important thing. But often, the goal is something else entirely. It's about generating heat, identifying an enemy, and feeding a culture that's become addicted to this kind of moral spectacle.
And that brings us to the conclusion of this argument, and a pretty stark warning about where this pattern ultimately leads. It's not a solution, it's an accelerant.
This kind of spectacle, this performance of outrage, it doesn't heal anything or solve any problems. It's not the cure. It is, quote, gasoline on the fire. It raises the heat, assigns blame without regard to reality, and leaves the wound to fester. And that, at the end of the day, is the fundamental takeaway here. From a murdered boy in 12th century England to a man with a rifle in a 21st century pizzeria, the pattern holds. Children are brought into the story to give a cause a sense of purity, of absolute moral urgency, but the narrative is never really truly about them. So, it leaves us with a really challenging question to ask ourselves. The next time you see a story like this break through, a story about suffering children that captures the world's attention and demands our outrage, it's worth taking a step back and asking, who is this story really for? Is it for the children, or is it for us?